سبيل الدموع سبيل مريح تنهدى يا صاحي كي تستريح وبث الدعاء الخفي الصريح.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So al-Hijja is estimated to be on the 13th of August. And this is obviously an estimation. This is all based on moon sighting, which I'm sure if you've been following our reports and following our various social media channels or website, you'll know that we will be making that announcement, inshallah. And here at the Only Foundation, as well as many other sites across the UK and across Europe, there will be groups of us going out to try to spot the moon, inshallah, and there may be a good chance for it. We're hopefully going to try to hook up with the Leeds University colleague that we met up with the last time round and see if we can use their telescopes and use their observational facilities, inshallah ta'ala. So if all going well, and the first of the Hijrah is on the 13th, then based on that, Eid will be, which is the 10th of the Hijrah, will be on the 22nd of August, which is a Wednesday. Again, I repeat, this is just based upon this prediction of estimating that Dhul Hijjah will start on the 1st of, sorry, not the 1st of August, on the 13th of August as to when it will start. Today what I'm going to talk to you about is it's quite a broad area. It is talking about Dhul Hijjah in particular. So we're going to discuss about certain aspects within Dhul Hijjah. One of those aspects is the 10 blessed days of Dhul Hijjah. Then it's the Eid itself, the Eid day. And then the 3 days which follow, which is the al-Tashrīq, in which well, we'll get to that when we get to it, inshallah. We have a number of questions which have come in over the period of weeks and have been collected by our admin, and they've been all listed here. There's approximately close to 30 questions. So I'm just going to sort of rattle through these questions, and there's some more questions that I have here, and more questions will come up as I go along. So we're probably going to be looking at around up to 40-50 questions to do with this particular topic. Now, we will try to keep some kind of structure, some kind of order. So we'll start from the general matters first. We'll then go on to the 10 days. We'll then go on to Eid day. And then obviously we'll finish on around Eid time. So first question, what is the significance of the month of Dhul Hijjah in Islam? Now, obviously we know there's 12 months in Islam. But certain months carry more significance, religiously speaking. We know Ramadan in particular has great significance, as do other months, Muharram as well. But Dhul Hijjah also has significance. We know in the 89th surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes oath, he takes pledge, he takes a qasam, as is referred to in some languages, on the fajr, fajr meaning the dawn, when the true dawn occurs. And then he also takes oath by the 10 days. And the commentators of the Quran, the Mufassirun, and those who are the Muhaddithun, they say that this is in reference, the dawn is referring to the day of sacrifice, and the 10, which is on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, obviously the Qurbānī, the Udhiya, which we will get to in time. And the 10 nights, walayalin ashar, is referring to the first 10 nights of Dhul Hijjah. So there is great significance with respect to the 10 days. Next question, which days should we fast on? Please distinguish which days are emphasized sunnah and which days are recommended. Well, it is emphasized sunnah to fast on all the days leading up to it, though, so that's the full 9 days. But the 9th day itself, which is referred to as the day of Arafat, is an emphasized sunnah, and we'll talk about that as we get to it in terms of its emphasis. We might as well quickly mention that too now. So we have a hadith, حدثنا أحمد بن عبده أخبرنا حماد بن زيد حدثنا غيلان بن جرير عن عبد الله بن معبد الزمانية عن أبي قتادة قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صيام يوم عرفة إني أحتسب على الله أن يكفر السنة التي قبله والتي بعده. That the fasting on the day of Arafah, this is a hadith in Ibn Majah, that the fasting in the day of Arafah, which will be the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which will be the, as we're predicting, the 21st of August, but that's a prediction, remember. So please bear that in mind. The dates will be, the exact dates will be out. Those dates will be out nearer the time. So, as I will mention the hadith to you. So fasting on the day of Arafah, I think Rasulullah says, and obviously when Rasulullah is thinking something, or I have expectation rather from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he will expiate the year which came before, meaning expiate the sins of the year before and the year which is coming. Obviously this is referring to minor sins. So we can see the great significance of those days. So we've got the 8 days itself and the 9th day, which is the day of Arafah, and how fasting on that particular day has such significance. Hajj is performed in Makkah, so should the whole world not follow Makkah sighting for this month? So this is an interesting question which comes up, especially when we look at global sighting compared to regional sighting, and then compared to local sighting. So we have 3 distinct methods of sighting. We have local sighting, which by its definition is referring to the particular area where the person lives. Regional would include the country that the person is living in and also the nearby countries. And then we would have global, which would by its definition include all the world. So should we follow that? Well, the thing we have to bear in mind is the starting of the month has to be considered where the person actually is, rather than taking a sighting from elsewhere. So in this case, the sighting should be where the person actually is. So they would ensure that the moon should be sighted locally, and once this moon is sighted locally, then they should count those days from there, rather than saying, oh well, Dhul Hijjah has started in Makkah, so we should also. For the people in Makkah, obviously they will go by the actual date that's been declared in Makkah. Why? Reason being is they are guests of the kingdom, and as they are guests of the kingdom, then they are required to abide by the same laws of the kingdom, and as a result they will abide by those laws, and also they will go by that sighting if a sighting has been made. Whereas for those living outside, they will go by those particular countries that they're living in. So next question, what is Qurbānī and how did it come about? Well, Qurbānī, which is the term which is used in Persian and Urdu and other languages which are based on them, but the Arabic term is Udhiya, and Udhiya actually means the flowing of blood. That's where it comes from. So what is its purpose? Well, if we look at, and in fact the events are similar, if we look at the rites of Hajj, the manasikul Hajj, the rites and the rituals that we do whilst we're performing Hajj, and also when we look at Udhiya, you'll find that the story is the same. It's regarding one family, and this is the family of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, in which Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam leaves his wife and his young child, Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam, alone in the middle of Makkah, which at that time was a desolate, deserted piece of land because there was no water, and leaves them with some water and a bag of dates. Then we find Hajar alayhi salatu wasalam is running from one Safa Marwa. She's running and she's trying to see if there's a caravan passing. The angel comes, the Zamzam water is dug up, and we see the ritual acts of Hajj, of running, and we also see the point of pelting the Jamarat, again in Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam story. And likewise we have when the young boy Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam becomes a mature, he doesn't become a man, but he's sort of in his teens, early teens, and he's taken to be trialed. Both Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam and Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam being trialed from a dream that Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam has, in which he sees himself slaughtering Ismail alayhi salam. And just before Ismail alayhi salam is slaughtered, a ram is brought from the heavens. Jibreel alayhi salam brings it, and the ram is slaughtered instead. And that then becomes a practice, a sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salam, which was acted by our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and has carried on. So that's the history behind it. Is there anything in the Quran which encourages Qurbani? There's much in the Quran which encourages Qurbani. Surah number 108, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to instructs the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. So pray for to your Rabb, yani your Lord, wanhar, and also slaughter animal. We have another one, قُلْ إِنَّ الصَّلَاةِ وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَّاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. That my slaughtering or rather my prayer, inna salati wa nusuki, my offerings, my life, my death, they are all for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's plenty of examples and of ayats which indicate towards and encouraging towards giving Qurbani. And similarly, there's lots of hadith also which encourage the Qurbani itself. I won't necessarily, well, maybe if you really want me to, I can quote one. قال حدثنا حجاج قال حدثنا شعبة قال أخبرني زبيد قال سمعت شعبية عن البراء قال سمعت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يخطب فقال إن أول ما نبدأ من يومنا هذا أن نصلي ثم نرجع فننحر فمن فعل فقد أصاب سنتنا. That indeed the first thing that we're going to start with on this day of ours is that we're going to pray, yani Eid prayer, and then we're going to return back to because the Eidgah, the place of prayer, is usually outside of the locality. Then we'll return and we will nanhur, we will slaughter our animal. فَمَنْ فَعَلَ, and whomsoever has done this, then indeed he has achieved our sunnah, he has obtained our sunnah. So that's a hadith which clearly mentions that to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to act on this particular practice. What is the reward for Qurbani? Well, we've been told from a number of hadiths that the reward for Qurbani is that for every hair, for every wool, for every strand, for whatever the type of creature is, then there is ajr for that particular person. So there's a reward for every single thing. Because bear in mind this, and there's sometimes a confusion that individuals think that when they slaughter the meat, when they slaughter the animal and they give the meat out, it's that part that they're getting the reward for, meaning giving the meat out. But it's not. The actual slaughtering of the animal is where the person gets reward. He is then further rewarded if he gives a third or up to a third in charity. He gets more reward. If he decides to give the whole animal in charity, then he will get rewarded for that as well. So it's the actual act of slaughter, the actual act of giving or sacrificing an animal in the name of Allah is what the person is rewarded for. And as I mentioned, whether it's a strand of hair, a strand of wool, anything of that nature, a person is rewarded for every single strand. So that's a high level of reward. But not only is it a reward, it is also an obligation. There is actually an obligation upon Muslims because the ruling then reaches onto wujub, and for people to actually slaughter animal on this particular day. So it's reached that level. So it's not as if a person has a choice. So what's the criteria? Well, the criteria is the nisab value. And just before I came on air, I made a note of the nisab values. And the nisab value for silver currently is £227.24. I'm recording this on the 19th of Dhul Qa'dah, which is the 1st of August that I'm recording this. This will go out on the 22nd of Dhul Qa'dah, which will be the 4th of August, if I'm not mistaken. Thursday will be the 2nd, 3rd will be Friday, and yes, Saturday will be the 22nd. Will be the 4th rather. So the silver price, which won't change much because the silver price is virtually the same as it was when I had it recorded nearly in the last sort of 10 days of Ramadan, is about £227. And the gold nisab value is £2,564.58. Considerable difference. Now I want to stop for one moment to discuss this particular point. And the reason why I want to discuss this particular point is because I've been getting prices for animals, and the price that it's looking for an animal that I will be looking at slaughtering is about around £145. So if we go for the nisab of silver, which is usually what ulama advise, then really if a person then does slaughter an animal, buys an animal for £145, he's not or she's not going to have much money left over. They'll have £80 left over, if that. So really that's not a true measure of wealth and not a true measure of affluency. In fact, the gold value is more adequately priced at 2564. So my view is that when it comes to Qurbani, one should use the gold nisab rather than the silver nisab, and that's what I suggest to individuals. There are ulama obviously who still prefer the silver position because they want to remain consistent. There is an argument which is held that going for silver is better because it's anfa'u lil fuqara. It is more beneficial for the poor people. However, I argue that that's the case when you're giving zakat. And I also agree that in the position of zakat, I currently say that you use silver as your nisab when you're calculating your zakat. Because it's 5%, sorry, 2.5% rather. So 2.5%, it's going to be £5. That's where I got the 5 from, approximately from £227. It's going to be £5, which it's a sum of money, but it's not a considerable sum of money. Whereas giving £145 out of 227 is very much so a large amount of money. So when it comes to Qurbani calculations, a person should use gold. If they choose to use silver, then that's that's their prerogative and that's their choice. As I've said, a number of muftis, a large number of muftis continue to give the Qurbani value on, the nisab value on silver. So just to clear up any confusion, I would suggest using the gold nisab value for Qurbani, but I will still continue to suggest and advise to use the silver nisab value for zakat. So it's better to stick to that approach because zakat is more beneficial that most of us are giving it, and therefore adopting the lower threshold is better. But Qurbani, the actual meat rarely, especially if you're slaughtering here in the UK, will reach the poor. And what people tend to do is keep the animal themselves, which is permissible to do so, rather than give any of the animal away, because as I mentioned to you earlier, the Qurbani is the actual slaughtering of the animal, not necessarily the meat which comes afterwards. The reward is given for that. Yes, you will get more reward if you give that animal away to the poor, but you will have actually achieved the reward for Udhiya just by slaughtering the animal. So that's that. Okay, next question. In the UK, it is not possible to perform your own Udhiya, Qurbani without getting a trainee license. Is it permitted for someone to do Qurbani who has a license locally Britain? Yes, if there is no legal reason stopping a person in the sense that they have a license, they're permitted to carry out the slaughtering of animals, then it's better to slaughter an animal with one's own hands. That's going to be very, very rare, and therefore, for most of us, it's going to be going to a reliable butchers who will have links to abattoirs, and then going and we have done this in the past. My friend and I have been several times in the past where we've actually selected the animal by going the night before and literally getting in amongst them in the pens and picking the animal, which is then branded for us. Either a tag with a number is placed in their ear and some means of identifying the animal, and then that is linked to us as individuals, and then we pop up the day after or even the day after that to pick the animal up, which has now obviously been slaughtered. Those who can't legally and easily perform their Qurbani, what should they do? Well, that has been answered in the question above. Can women perform their own Qurbani? Again, if their criteria is met that they have a license and they're permitted to do so, then there's nothing stopping them. Yes, they may. Can we send money overseas to perform Qurbani? Yes, that's also a possibility. It's also feasible to do so. And what I tend to do is, because there's there's 4 adults in our house, but one of our adults is not at the moment in a position to have reached the threshold of nisab, but the other 3 have. So what we tend to do is we slaughter 1 or 2 animals in here in the UK, and maybe we do 1 across in a foreign country, depending on what the need is. So at least we continue to see the Qurbani ourselves, eat from the Qurbani as well, which is a sunnah, and likewise we give some meat away to the poor. So that's an approach that people can take, because I assume in most houses, husband, wife, and maybe even an adult child that's grown up now, that will also be an adult son or an adult daughter who also will have nisab. If we are sending money overseas, should the Qurbani be done according to our Eid or their Eid, meaning according to their local moon sighting? And would it matter if they sighted the moon before us, so their Eid is the day before? The place of the animal has to be taken into consideration when it comes to slaughter. So it's not where we are, it's where the actual animal is. So, and that needs to be done obviously after the Eid prayer. So that's the important thing, that the animal has been slaughtered after the Eid prayer, not before the Eid prayer. In some outskirts villages where Eid, and this is very remote, highly unlikely, but if there is such a village in which there is no Eid prayer, then there is some permissibility of them slaughtering it beforehand. But generally speaking, even villages now are quite big villages. They're not the villages of the past, in which there was only a handful of houses, no more than that, and as a result they did not hold Eid prayer. Can Qurbani be done on behalf of relatives alive or passed away? Well, you can, yes, a person can appoint somebody to carry out an Udhiya on their behalf. And there's in our tradition, there's narrations. We know, for example, the Prophet ﷺ actually asked Sayyidina Ali to do so. So yes, there's no harm in doing that. For people who've passed away, if we want to do it for the sake of reward for them, sadaqah jariyah, then yes, that's permissible to do so as well. Where we're trying to give for this person, so the person gets the reward of it, then there's no harm in that either. Should a person do a single Qurbani for himself and then another with multiple intentions, or should a single Qurbani suffice for multiple people, including the one which is obligatory on him? Well, the one upon whom one is obligatory. So if, for example, in my case, I have, say, I have passed the threshold of £2,564.58, then Qurbani is due upon me. So I would give an animal for myself. If then I decided that I also wanted to do an animal for my grandparents, for the Prophet ﷺ, for the Sahaba, then I could sacrifice another animal with the intentions of all those people. But I can't include the intentions of all those people with mine, because it's compulsory upon me. It's an act which is binding upon me, and it's something that I have to fulfill myself. With others, obviously, I have then that option to do so. How many Qurbanis can be done in a sheep, lamb, goat, cow or camel? Most of us, especially in this country, we tend to only slaughter goat, lamb or sheep. That tends to be our, that tends to be the animal that we slaughter. But it is permissible to slaughter any animal. The list that we just mentioned there, any of those are permissible to do, whether it's a goat, whether it's a sheep, a cow or a camel. So smaller animals like sheep, lamb, goat, and a lamb has to be at minimum 6 months old. I know there's a problem currently, especially in Yorkshire, maybe possibly throughout the UK, in which the lambs are very young. They're only sort of 4 months old. So they will not meet the criteria for animals that can be done. And also the animal itself must be free from fault. It can't have a damaged ear. It can't be an eye damaged or something. It should be an animal which is free from all these issues. Minimum requirements for the animal to be suitable for Qurbani. One should avoid, it should be free of defects, so it shouldn't be lame, it shouldn't be blind or one-eyed, it shouldn't be a sick animal, it shouldn't be weak or insane, it shouldn't be mangy or covered in scabs, an ear that's been cut off or with a piece of ear that's been cut off. It should not have a significant part of its haunches missing or any meat-bearing portion of its body, and more than a third of its tail should not be cut off. This is the reason why it's so important to actually carry out the Udhiya in this country and actually go to see the animal. Reason being is then you can make sure that it has no defects, because at the end of the day, unless you really trust your butcher, which he won't actually know, but unless you can really trust your abattoir to make sure that they're only giving you animals for which Qurbani is valid, then it could be that your Qurbani is not actually valid because the animal that's been selected is unsuitable for Qurbani. Once the Qurbani is done, how should the meat be distributed? The meat should be distributed a third, a third, a third. It's not should be, but can be, it's advised to be, a third for the poor, a third for friends, family, relatives, neighbors, and a third the person can keep themselves. Again, there's no sin upon the person if they chose to keep all of it themselves. However, they'll miss, it's an opportunity to share with others. If the person consumes the meat of the Qurbani by themselves without sharing, is that acceptable? I've already answered that. Yes, it is. Can the meat of Qurbani be shared with non-Muslims, homeless shelters and charities? Yes, it's permissible to do so. A person can give meat in those areas. What is Takbir of Tashriq and when should it be recited and how often? So let's just, you'll find this detailed fatwa on the Telegram channel. So the Takbir of Tashriq is wajib. Hence an individual is a sinner if they intentionally omit it. The days of Tashriq are referred to the 3 days when the day of slaughter, after the day of slaughter rather, in which the meat which was slaughtered was jerked. And this is meat that's trimmed from fat, cut into strips, salt sometimes rubbed into it as well, and then it's left out to dry so that it will not spoil and keep. You hear this sharaq al-lahm. Sharaq al-lahm yani to be cut into strips and put out into the sun to dry. There are other reasons given as well, but that's the main reason. Some say that it is sunnah and not wajib. How do we determine that it is wajib? It is wajib based upon the 2 ayats that we have recorded, and they are, where are we there? There we are. وَاذْكُرُوا fi ayyami ma'dudat, and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during specific days. And this is Surah Baqarah ayat number 203, and also in Surah Hajj ayat number 28, وَيَذْكُرُ اسْمَ اللَّهِ fi ayyami ma'dudat, and remember the name of Allah in particular days, in known days. So both these 2 ayats refer quite clearly وَذْكُرُوا, which is an amr, which is an imperative, and also وَيَذْكُرُوا, again another imperative that's being given there, that the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be remembered, and this is what it's referring to. How many times should the Takbir of Tashriq be recited? It should be recited only once after each compulsory prayer that's prayed. Is it true that Takbir of Tashriq is based on a conversation between either Jibreel alayhi salam, Sayyidina Ibrahim and Sayyidina Ismail, or between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jibreel alayhi salam and Sayyidina Ibrahim? This has been mentioned, and this was at the time when Ibrahim alayhi salam was about to slaughter his son, and then he was called by Jibreel alayhi salam from the heavens, and then he responded. So, and we get the Takbir of Tashriq, which is Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Wallahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Walillahi alhamd. And that's how it should be recited. This is mentioned by the version that I just recited to you is collected by Ibn Abi Shayba with a good sanad from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. According to Islam, which of the sons of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam was the one that was potentially going to be sacrificed? I've already answered that, and it was Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam. What is the manner in performing Takbir of Tashriq? It should be recited after every compulsory prayer. This includes Jummah prayer, but excludes Witr, and also does exclude the 2 Eid prayers and any Nafil prayers. However, as Eid is now a congregational prayer like Jummah, and as Muslims have historically recited it, then it can be, and some have said it should be, recited after Eid prayer as well. This excludes any prayer which is a communal obligation like Janazah prayer, and it should be recited immediately after the compulsory prayer with no delay. Therefore, if a person left the masjid or spoke, whether intentionally or forgetfully, or invalidated his wudu intentionally, then he cannot recite the takbir. If his wudu was nullified without intention after the salam, then he should recite the takbir. Next question, what if I perform a kadhai prayer in these days? Do I make Takbir of Tashriq? Well, there's numerous scenarios that a person could do a kadhai prayer. It could be made kadhai outside of the Takbir of Tashriq, and he's now praying it in Takbir of Tashriq. Or it could be a salah which was made kadhai in Takbir of Tashriq, and is now being prayed in Takbir of Tashriq. And arguably, it could have been a Takbir of Tashriq prayer, or one of the ones in there, which is now praying outside of the 3 days, and I think there's one other which I've now forgotten, but anyway, the only scenario in which one would recite the Takbir of Tashriq after qadha prayer is when the prayer was made qadha from these days of Takbir of Tashriq and made up in these days of Takbir of Tashriq. So that's the day. So that's the one to bear in mind. So it's the ones which were made qadha in those 3 days of this year, which are now being prayed in the same year within those 3 days. When does the Takbir of Tashriq start and finish? It starts from the fajr of the day of Arafah, which is the 9th of Dhul-Hijjah, which we mentioned is probably going to be, remember I keep saying this, probably going to be on the 21st of August until the Asr of the last day of the days of Tashriq, which is going to be the 13th of Dhul-Hijjah, which will probably be the 25th of August, a Saturday. And this is a total of 23 prayers. And this year, as I'll give you those dates already, we take the view of Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad as their position is longer than that of Imam Abu Hanifa. This is because when it comes to acts of worship, we should be more precautious. Imam Abu Hanifa's view was, rahimahullah ta'ala, was that this only should be prayed in congregation, should recite it after the prayer. So it'll be those masjids which facilitate for women worshippers, then the ladies should also recite it. But like their prayer and like other acts within their prayer, it should be inaudible. Also, if the Imam was for whatever reason to forget its recitation, then the muqtadis, those who are behind the Imam, should recite it, and which will also serve as a reminder to the Imam and the one who joins late. So that means the Imam will remember that I need to recite it. So they shouldn't just wait on the Imam, because the imamat of the Imam has now stopped after he gave the second salam. The one who joins the prayer late, meaning the masbuk, should recite it after he completes his compulsory prayer. Imams Abu Yusuf and Muhammad rahimahullah are of the view that every person should recite it, whether the person is a traveler, whether it's an ill person, a man or woman praying alone at home, or even a village dweller. And this is the position that we should adopt. Taking into consideration Imam Abu Hanifa's view, the manner in which the individual would recite it in congregation should be imitated in their reciting if praying individually. So again, men should recite it audibly and women should recite it inaudibly. And last question from this set is it permissible to cut hair or pare nails in the first 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah? This is based on the hadith collected by Imam Muslim, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, when the 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah come, where are we? إذا دخل العشر وأراد بعضكم أن يضحي فلا يأخذن شعرا ولا يكلمن زفورا. That when the 10 days of Dhul-Hijjah start and you intend to offer a sacrifice, then do not cut your hair nor pare your nails. This is actually a praiseworthy act, but not compulsory. One should bear in mind that a person should pare their nails, trim their moustache, remove unwanted hair, clean and bathe at least once a week. If not, then once every 15 days, but not beyond 40 days without a legal dispensation. Otherwise, he is blameworthy. The best practice is to pare nails and remove all unwanted hair before the start of Dhul-Hijjah. If one has forgotten, then as long as they do not go close to 40 days, they may choose not to remove unwanted hair and pare their nails with the intention of seeking reward until they have sacrificed an animal. So this would include everybody, but remember, it is not compulsory to do. Back to this. Is there any difference? Where are we? Sorry. There we are. What is Takbir of Tashriq and when should it be recited? How often? That's already been answered from the question that I got here. Is there any difference between men and women reciting it? Again, I've already answered it. Can it be recited other than after Salah? No, it should only be recited after Salah. If a person forgets to recite it after Salah, what should be done? Again, I've already responded to that here. What are the prominent sunnahs of the days of Eid al-Adha? Again, with the other Eid al-Fitr, it is to bathe, it is to adorn oneself with neat clothes, to do miswak, apply perfume, to get up nice and early, to take a route to the masjid and a different route back. And this time, one should also make audible the Takbir of Tashriq as he's walking there and walking back. There isn't obviously eating. He shouldn't eat, whereas in Eid al-Fitr he should eat before he goes to the Eidgah. In this case, it's better to eat after, and usually the practice was to eat the slaughtered meat. However, in our case in the UK, this is going to be highly unlikely because we rarely get it in the morning, most likely in the evening, and in some cases actually the next day we receive it. Even though the animal is slaughtered on Eid day, we don't receive the meat till the day after. What is the best time to pray Eid al-Adha Salah? Well, it's as early as possible, but again, because men used to then be preoccupied with slaughtering animals, but again, taking into consideration the masjid and what arrangements it has to make. Can it be prayed on all 3 days of Eid al-Adha or only on the first day? No, if a person for whatever reason did not pray on the first day, then it can be prayed on the next day and even on the third day. So you can pray on the 10th. For whatever reason it wasn't prayed, you can pray on the 11th. And again, worst case, if it's not being prayed on the 11th, it can be prayed on the 12th. But obviously praying on the first day is what a person should do. If a person joins the Eid Salah late and he has missed the additional takbīrs, what should he do? Well, we know that when we're praying Eid Salah, we make niyyah for 6 extra takbīrs. And it's a 2 rakat wajib salah. We then stand, we perform takbir tahrima behind the imam, and we will recite thana, yani subhanaka wa bihamdika. Then you will hear the imam say Allahu Akbar, and he will drop his hands, Allahu Akbar, and he will drop his hands, Allahu Akbar, and he will then tie his hands. He will then recite Surah Fatiha, he will recite a surah, he will go into ruku, he will go into sajda, and he will stand up now for the second rakat. In the second rakat, he will then again recite Surah Fatiha, he will recite a surah, but instead of going into ruku, there's still 3 extra takbīrs that are left. There were 3 in the first and there's 3 in the second. Again, he will say Allahu Akbar, raising his hands and then drop them, Allahu Akbar, raising the hands and dropping them, Allahu Akbar, raising the hands and dropping them, and on the 4th Allahu Akbar, going into ruku, and then going into sajda, and going into qaida akhira, and finish the salah off. So if a person turns up and he finds that his imam is now reciting, he's missed the 3 takbiri, the extra takbirs after thana, because he's walked in and imam is on Surah al-Fatiha, or he's on another surah, then if he knows he has time, he can make the extra takbirs first. If he still has time and the imam hasn't gone into ruku yet, and he knows he's got an ayat or 2 to read, he can then again still do those 3 extra takbirs. However, if he walks in and he finds that he's in ruku now, the imam is in ruku, then if he knows he's not going to catch the imam if he decides not to go into ruku, then he should go into ruku and do the 3 extra takbirs in ruku, but this time not raising his hands, because his hands should remain now on his knees, and then he will follow the imam. If a person joins the Eid Salah late and he has missed a rakat and he has to stand and make it up, should he do the extra takbīrs when he stands after the imam has finished to make up his missed salah? So if the person has missed the first rakat altogether, then what he should do is, when the imam has finished, he owes a rakat. Now he's caught the imam in the imam's second rakat, and it was the muqtadi's, the masbuk's first rakat. So he's done those 3. Which are done just before going into ruku. He's done those 3 in the second rakat of the imams. But now obviously he missed the first rakat. So when tashahhud is done and imam finishes, he has now got to stand up. But he shouldn't do his 3 extra takbīrs now, otherwise the 3 extra takbīrs he did at the end of the last rakat will be too close to these 3. So what he will do is pray Surah al-Fatiha. Once he prays Surah al-Fatiha, he'll pray a surah. Now he will do those 3 extra takbīrs from his first rakat, but he would have moved their place to be at the end there. Finally, last question. If Jummah prayer falls on the days of Eid al-Adha, are there any special exemptions, or should a person pray both Eid al-Adha and Jummah prayers? Yes, in those circumstances, a person should pray both Eid al-Adha and he should pray Jummah prayer, bearing in mind that this was originally set when the Eidgah was so far away, it would take people a long time to get there, accumulate and then pray, then to go back and then come again for Jummah prayer. For that reason, there's some opinions which says that one of the 2 would suffice. However, according to us, he should should perform both prayers. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make our Dhul Hijjah successful. May He give us the opportunity to sight the moon again like He did for Ramadan. And may He also give us a productive Dhul Hijjah, so we make the most of these 10 special days. And may He also grant upon us a happy and prosperous Eid to us all. Ameen. Wa akhiru da'wana. And alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
الخفي الصريح يسعك الفضاء الرحيم